Group 11 Resources is a lead zinc focused exploration and development company in the Republic of Ireland. Its advanced stage Ballywire zinc-lead-silver discovery is located approximately 20 kilometers from its 77.6% owned Stonepark zinc-lead deposit. CEO Bart Zaworski is providing a presentation and update on ZNG's Ballywire discovery, given the very impressive drill results which were released yesterday. It's Friday, May the 9th. I'm Martin Gagel with Market Radius Research. Please remember, this is neither recommendation nor investment advice. We're here to learn about the company. Bart, it's great to have you back.
Thanks for having me, Martin. Really appreciate it.
All right. Well, it's been about a year since we last talked, and you've been very busy drilling and exploring the Ballywire project. And yesterday, as I said, you put out some excellent results, and I'm looking forward to digging into those. So why don't you start off with your presentation and give a bit of an overview on Group 11, and then we can focus in on the recent results.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks a lot, Martin. Yeah, my name is Bart Zaworski, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'm the CEO and co-founder of the company. I'm a geologist and an ex-mining analyst, about 25 years industry experience. And when we first started Group 11 in 2015, our vision was to discover Ireland's next big zinc deposit. The good news is that we have made that discovery. It is the largest zinc discovery in Ireland in the last decade. It's proving up to have copper in it as well, which is quite significant as well. Ireland is well known for its zinc deposits, but we're now finding high-grade copper here, as well as high-grade silver and a little bit of antimony. So just to whet your appetites for the presentation here, which I'm going to dig into that copper and antimony side of things in a second. But basically, a quick question, I guess, for the audience is how long it took us to go from concept to discovery hole. And the answer there is it took us a whole 7 years, 100 drill holes, and about 20 million bucks from when we first started the company to when we made the discovery. The discovery is called Ballywire. We announced the discovery hole in September of 22. And like I said, basically the most significant thing that's happened in Ireland in terms of exploration in the last decade, and zinc, lead, silver, but now copper and a little bit of antimony coming up, as well as high germanium. So I'll just leave you with that note and dig into some of the background of the company. So we are Glencore and Michael Gentile owned. Those are our two largest shareholders. They're neck and neck with 16% interest of the share register. Most people ask me, what's the market cap of the company? So right now, we were 40 million market cap only a few days ago. On the back of yesterday's news, we're now up at closer to 60 or north of 60 million market cap. How much cash do we have? That's $4.2 million, roughly Canadian. That's on the back of a raise that we did, $2.5 million raise back in late February that we closed, and 1.7 million going into that in terms of the December numbers. And the board now, so the board and the management team. So big news for us is that both Glencore and Michael Gentile are sitting on the board, but Michael just joined us late last year, so that was big news for us. For those of you who don't know Michael Gentile, he's a portfolio manager out of Montreal, but also a leading strategic investor in the junior resource space. So we're absolutely thrilled to have him on the board. Fantastic. And then Glencore, who's had a director on our board since 2020, has now changed directorship. So Gaitlin actually was there before, a few months ago, as some people may recall, and he got poached by somebody else, and he left basically our board and etc. And so Glencore replaced him with Franz Bowman. So Franz Bowman has joined us on the board level, and look forward to working with him in that capacity. Also, Dan McInnes, who I'm sure a lot of the audience would know from Mag Silver. He's a geologist, a longtime mining executive. There's myself in there as well. Brendan Cahill, who's a lawyer, also a longtime mining executive. Alessandro Batelli is an accountant and longtime mining exec, and incidentally and interestingly involved with the Lundin Group of companies, Lundin Gold, Fruta del Norte, etc. And David Furlong and I, we're the co-founders together. There was a third geologist that helped us farm the company initially, but David and I are the main day-to-day of the company, and have been so since 2019 and long before that. Janine is our CFO in Vancouver, and Dr. Mark Holdstock has been our project manager, really our senior geologist for a long time now, since in 2018. and he's famous in Irish circles for having discovered part of the largest zinc deposit in Ireland, which is Navan, as it's a Beliden's project over there, Tara as it's otherwise called. So just moving on then, Ireland. There's a map. The circle is basically where the discovery was made. This is the Ballywire discovery. And just to note, it's on the Rathdowney Trend, that green stripe there, which also hosts Lachine and the Galmoy deposits. Those are the two most recent zinc mines in Ireland. If I had more time, I'd describe all the other ones, Tara, Silver Mines, Tina, etc. Gordrum, I don't have enough time. But anyway, look, we are only 20 kilometers away or so from Glencore's Pallas Green deposit, which is, again, very close to our Stonepark deposit. I'm just going to zoom in on this area. This is the Limerick part of Ireland. Just going to jump into this yellow box. This is the picture here. And first thing to note is Glencore is everything you see in blue. South 32 is everything you see in yellow there. As I mentioned, the Ballywire discovery, which is this yellow box here, is only 20 kilometers away from critical mass. Critical mass being Glencore's Pallas Green deposit. And of course, right beside that, we have our Stonepark deposit, which is a 5 million ton deposit, roughly 11.3%. And so that's kind of the setup in terms of where we are relative to some serious tonnage and really nice grade. Glencore's Pallas Green deposit is one of the largest undeveloped zinc deposits in the world. So I'm just going to jump into this yellow solid box here, which is the Ballywire discovery, and basically just starting off in 1997, because I just want to demonstrate there was no drilling here whatsoever around that time. There was one hole that was intercepted that was quite interesting, 2.5 meters of 6% zinc and lead, with a 0.5 meter slug of massive sulfides. But unfortunately, they lost it as they moved south. There was 2 more holes that were drilled, one in 2000, one in 2008, a little bit of smoke, no fire. And then we came along. This is open ground, by the way. By that point, we staked all this in 2016. We drilled our first hole in 2019. This was actually 3 zones of 3 meters of 4% zinc and lead with a bit of silver in there. And that represented probably our best hole to date at that time. So we were quite excited by that at that time. We were doing a lot of other work in Ireland, but by the time we came back to Ballywire, we drilled here. And this is where it's a little bit more shallow. And this was interesting because this was the first time we actually got a snippet of really robust mineralization, 3 meters of 12% zinc and lead with 50 grams. And incidentally, including a 0.5 meter slug of massive sulfide, just like that hole in 1997, running 25% zinc lead and nearly 100 grams silver. So that piqued our interest. We thought, let's drill all around that 300 to 400 meter step outs just to get the lay of the land. So the first hole got a little bit of mineral. The second hole got a little bit mineral as well, not that much. The third hole got a bit better. And then bang, our discovery hole on the 4th hole, September of 2022. So there we got 10 meters of 10% zinc and lead and 100 grams silver, which has become very much the case for most of our holes. I think they're kind of in that range. And within that was 2 meters of 41% and nearly 400 grams silver. So just a fantastic hands down discovery hole. So was it just a flash in the pan, or did it continue? So obviously we drilled all up and down the dip there, and luckily we hit high grade mineralization in every single hole. The best of which was actually a 60-meter step out to the east, and that got another 10 meters of 9% with nearly 50 grams per ton silver, with high grades within it, 2.5 meters here, 30%, and nearly 160 grams per ton silver. So fantastic stuff. We kept going. September of 2023. We stepped out again. We were starting, the trend started to emerge here. We got 18 meters of 10, one of the best holes ever of 10% zinc lead, nearly 300 grams, not 100 grams now, but 300 grams per ton silver. A little bit of copper started to show up here. So more of that to come. Then in November, we drilled these holes, and I'm just going to zoom in on those and let the audience just see what we were getting here. Just as a reminder, 700 meters of strike at this stage. And we were getting grades like 10 meters of 8% with really good silver, 3 meters of 8 with good silver, 5 meters of 12 with good silver, and 11 meters of 9 with really good silver, 83 grams per ton. So another side note here, Martin, is that this is a well-behaved system. At this stage, we started to recognize the fact that, you know what, this is all at the base of the wall sorption limestone. So new discoveries can be tricky because you could have them in many different horizons. They could be many different orientations. They could be folded and faulted and all over the place. Here, we are very lucky in that it's a well-behaved system. In other words, it's all in one horizon at the base of the wall sorption limestone, which is textbook Irish type. And that's obviously good for stepping out and hitting. So in terms of exploration success and predictability, that's great. In terms of mineability in the future, obviously that goes without saying. And thirdly, in terms of putting an initial mineral resource estimate together, hopefully we don't have to Swiss cheese it in order to get to an initial MRE. So hopefully, because the geostatistics should be nice and well behaved, we shouldn't have to drill with too tight a spacing in order to at least get to inferred when that time comes. So,
Bart,
yeah.
sorry to interrupt here. You're not very deep. You're a couple hundred meters down. Is there a lot of surface expression of mineralization, or is it a lot of overburden there, or you choosing your holes just by the geophysics, or when you do your step outs and you narrow in on your targets? What's guiding you to those?
It's primarily the historic drilling that led us to this area, and obviously we're in the right target horizon. But really, as you know, that 1997 hole told us there's something here. Those 08 holes and 2000 hole also had some really interesting tidbits, alteration, everything else that showed us we're in a hot spot, but
Yeah.
no economic mineralization was hit at that stage. And so that's where we just basically did just a 300 to 400 meter step outs in all directions, and
Okay.
that's when we got lucky where we got onto the trend. Once you get on the trend, you basically drill all up and down it, and then you start basically putting the story together. And from that stemmed the trend, and we've been following the trend ever since. And
Right.
that's really how. Now, I'll show you in a second that we do have some gravity anomalies which are guiding us as well, and that seems to be working and from a regional perspective. So I'll tell you that in a second. Hopefully that
Thank you.
answers your question.
Yep.
Actually, that's very apropos because the 700 meters that I was just talking about, going back to plan view, this is the geophysics. So we were basically just moving to the just did some gravity and got some detailed gravity, ground gravity, and found that there was an anomaly to the northeast of us, to the southwest of us, never been drilled. And actually, what we did is we projected the massive sulfides, and that really gave us the wherewithal to step out. And to your question, Martin, very astute of you, is that actually that's what gave us the wherewithal to step out in a really big way. 930 meters with one rig and 530 meters with the other rig. So we're really holding our breath here because these are big step outs. They're very gutsy moves. But luckily we were rewarded. And over here we got 5 meters of 5% with half an ounce. Not too shabby at all. And over here we got some of the highest grades ever in terms of silver, 1,400 grams per ton, and actually 6% copper. So that was a really interesting hole. We knew north of it would probably be massive sulfides, which there was. The point of this slide, though, is to just show that we, at this stage, had a corridor of substantial mineralization pierced over 2.6 kilometers. So that's a really key point at this stage. So now I'm going to fast forward from April last year to February this year. So I'm kind of skipping ahead 1 year and just showing you the level of, I guess, advancement that we've had on the property ever since. We had 2024 was just a stellar year of stepping out and getting really great results, up to 30 meters of 10% zinc and lead grades with stellar silver along the way, good germanium numbers to boot. And just I want to stop here in February and just hone in on this area, because this is the area we just started drilling here not too long ago. And I'm just going to jump into the cross section here where it says A to A prime. Look at that from the side, and here we're getting 5 meters of, call it 7% zinc and lead with some silver. We stepped out 50 meters, got another 15 meters of 12 with great silver and a little bit of copper. March then came around, and we had this hole where we intersected 130 meters of mineralization, and within it was 7 meters of 20%, massive sulfides, this red stuff here. Included in that was over 2 meters of 40% with 72 grams, like fantastic stuff. And we were getting a little bit of this green area in here, 2 meters of 300 grams and 0.52 copper. So we knew there was some copper in the neighborhood. And this is where things were up until yesterday morning. Yesterday morning, we basically announced this. So I'm just going to toggle back and forth and show you back and forth here. If you can follow the shape and see how it's expanded with hole 31. So basically, first point to make is we got some stellar intercepts. It was a 65-meter step out from previous drilling, which basically means we have 170-meter up and down dip extent, open on both sides. So that's the first point to make. The big headline, though, was the copper silver hit. This is really strong, and not very often you see copper at the base of the Walsroshian limestone. And so, and the grades here are some of the highest grades. Again, we've actually beat our old record of 1,400 grams per ton silver, and now we got 1,800 grams per ton here. over about a meter, and up to 10%, 10.5% copper also over about a meter. But the big interval was about 20 meters long here. It had 356 grams per ton silver and 1.5% copper. Within that was 12 meters of 560 grams per ton silver and 2.3% copper. These are really good grades. And within that was 6 meters of nearly 1,000 grams per ton, 838 grams per ton silver, and nearly 4% copper. So just really, really stellar. The other interesting tidbit was the antimony. So especially along that 6-meter zone, we were getting antimony numbers up to 0.27% antimony. For those who don't follow antimony, it's worth about $15 conservatively. So it's about 3 times more or 5 times more value, 3 times more valuable than copper. So it's quite an interesting metal if you have it. And so here, 0.27% is something like 6 pounds a ton. 6 pounds, 6 times 15 is 90. So it's not just in terms of scale of relevance, that is not an insignificant potential sweetener. So and of course, within that 1 meter zone, we were getting up to 0.83% antimony. So again, we're not making a big deal out of it. If we find more of that, great. But it is there, and it's worth mentioning because it is a very much a critical metal in high demand right now. So outside of that, we also got a great zinc-silver hit as well. 47 meters of mineralization here, running 4.5% zinc lead and 22 grams, and within it was a 12-meter sweet spot there of 11% zinc lead and nearly 60 grams per ton silver. And within that, 4 meters of 20% with nearly 150 grams per ton. So again, that intercept 3 years ago, we would have dreamed about having. So we just got that sort of along the way in this hit. So we're very, very happy with that. So there it all is in one fell swoop. It was a great hole 31. And just to leave you in this little nugget that we also got some calcite. There's calcite bodies that are associated sitting sort of vertically on top of the high-grade mineralization here. I'll come back to that point in a second. So what does it all mean? Basically, this is a 3D model looking basically down plan view. And what I was just talking about is here in A to A prime. And just notice that about 200 meters away, like I mentioned, there's a hole here with 1,400 grams per ton and 6% copper. So it seems like that copper zone is really emerging, and we have about a strike of 200 meters on it. Another view of it is this oblique view that we put into the news release. This green area here is the copper-silver zone. So that's also emerging as a very interesting zone. You can see it better here. And so what does that mean? Well, let's zoom out even further and look at this cross-section, A to double prime A, and let's see what's happening there. So this is basically a more of a regional cross-section. This slide shows you what we know, what we've already intersected. So this is already in place. The next slide shows you what we think we have. This is our exploration model, right? So that's when things get pretty interesting because we know 2 things. Number 1 is that we're getting high-grade copper silver, and it's likely coming from below. So that's point number 1. Number 2, we know from the regional stratigraphy of the area that the lower limestone shale should be about 100 to 200 meters below this green unit, below the Walsrosian limestone. And the lower limestone shale just happens to host 4 copper-silver historic resources in the neighborhood. And I'm just going to flash you those now very quickly. Go back to the regional view and just show you Ula's number 1. This is a mining area from the 1750s to the 1850s. Then there's Gordrum, which was mined in the 1960s and 70s. And then there's Denison, which is a historic prospect, historic estimate of about 5 million tons of a percent copper and 40 grams per ton silver. And then Tulacondra, which is in that ballpark as well, about 4 million tons or so. So if you put a broad circle around those areas, you see kind of a district of copper silver within Ireland. We don't know of any other copper silver historic estimates or prospects in Ireland outside of scant little areas outside of Ireland and outside of this. So this is really interesting. We seem to be in a copper silver rich part of Ireland. And Ballywire is in the middle of that. So that's the really exciting part. Now those historic resources around us are interpreted to be the eroded remnants of what was probably originally much more vertically extensive systems with zinc on top of it, but that's now been eroded off, and you're just seeing basically the copper sticking out of the ground. So that's how those were initially discovered in the 60s and 70s. But what the interesting thing about Ballywire is that it's much deeper. So basically we have something that is intact. We already have the zinc and the lead zone, which should be the top of the system. So if the copper system, the copper roots are there, obviously it's going to be underneath us. It's going to be intact. And so there's 2 points here to make, that the footprint already of Ballywire is bigger than the other surrounding areas, the other surrounding occurrences. Number one. Number two, we have something that could potentially be intact as opposed to largely eroded off. And so obviously that has implications for economics, et cetera, et cetera. But so that's the really exciting part. Now, I'm going to just switch gears. Yesterday also we announced the work on the Northeast extension, so I'm just going to touch on that very quickly. We did announce 3 holes here on the Northeast, and those were mineralized, but the main point there was they're not as strongly mineralized as the main zone. They're in line with holes that we announced back in March over here, which were showing us that the mineralization is increasing in strength and copper actually towards the north. And so these holes were much of the same. So they're basically showing us that the likely source of the high grade should be here somewhere. So we're following up on that as we speak. And also definitely corroborated by yesterday's news, this trend, the southerly trend, which is very much intact now from yesterday's news, looks like it's trending onto that hole that we drilled in, that 08 hole that had the 5 meters of 5% in it. So we're doing work on following that up as well. So that's what we're calling the Northeast extension. So stay tuned for that. So I'm just now going to summarize basically our targets and then leave it for questions. So right now, as I mentioned, we're doing work on the Northeast extension. That's that blue area. We're also set up and are drilling on the deeper copper target that I was just talking about. And we have this 1.3 kilometers away, this area over here. And then remember when I mentioned that yellow calcite zone. So there's a lot of calcite here from 2 historic shallow holes that was picked up. And so from that and historic hole that is actually mineralized, plus the fact that there's a gravity anomaly in this area, we moved 1.3 kilometers over and are drilling this area as well. So stay tuned for that. And then just the very last 2 slides here before we open it up. What's the bigger picture at Ballywire? Well, we have 4 regional gravity high anomalies, A through D. They're within, underlain by the Walsröischen limestone here. So the limestone shouldn't have any gravity anomalies in it, but there's 4 of them. And the discovery, and the gravity basically tells you there's something of higher density within, say, 400 meters of surface. That's what gravity tells you. So again, it's always really interesting when you see gravity in a situation like this. The discovery has been essentially made on the C gravity anomaly. That's where the most of the discovery is. And we're just starting to drill D. These 2 white holes here are those calcite, those shallow calcite holes over here. This is the historical that I was talking about from 1999 that had a meter of 4% and a meter of 2. So again, we have historic holes that are kicking, we have calcite, and we have a gravity anomaly. So there's 3 lines of evidence to suggest there could be something here. So fingers crossed there, and knock on wood and all that. The B anomaly we've actually drilled initially. We got some sniffs. We think we're close. We'll go back to that area sooner rather than later. And then the A anomaly we haven't even started working on yet. So that's all for exploration. Hopefully all of that done by the end of this year. And I will leave it there, Martin, and open it up for any questions.
Excellent. That was excellent presentation, Bart. You got good data to work with as well, but you showed it off very nicely and clearly. With this new data, how is that going to affect your drill plans? Clearly, I would think you're going to be going deeper here because you've been drilling about 300 meters deep, and you started hitting stuff, the copper at the past that. Are all your holes going to be going down a couple 100 meters deeper, or and then as well, are given this data, are you going to orient or put the holes in different places?
Yeah, the 2 holes the 2 rigs that we have going right now are still going to be maintaining that shallow drilling sort of within 300 meters depth. But the 3rd rig that we just added on the back of the success we've had here with copper, silver, antimony, et cetera, is we're sort of pulling back a little bit and going perpendicular to where we expect those structures to be. And with that, we should be able to lock in the exact location of this fault, and we'll follow that fault down to the deeper lower limestone shale, and that's where hopefully the target, well, that is where the target is, and we're going to pinpoint it that way. So there'll be there'll be a lot of really interesting drilling going on over the next few weeks and months. But that will be probably, yeah, down to, if we're drilling 350, we're going to go down another 200 meters, so-called 550, 600 meters or so. But again, not to, that wouldn't be considered deep drilling per se, but especially a good point to make here is that Ireland has has very, very good drill costs in terms of $150 per meter. Because we have no helicopter, we don't need to build roads, we don't need to build cribbing, we're not hanging off the side of a cliff. You essentially just drive up on the roads, the side roads, you drive onto the paddock to the exact location where you want to drill, you park your trailer and you start to drill. So that makes it very competitive in terms of costs for drilling. And that's really a key point for an Irish exploration story. That drill costs here are very reasonable.
The near-term drilling, that's going to all be in that C zone. Is that correct? Do you have an idea when you're going to step out to do the D and then eventually the A targets?
Yeah, so the D we're actually drilling right now with with our second rig. The one
Okay.
rig is at the northeast anomaly, drilling that off. The
Yeah.
the other one has been moved to the D anomaly, so we're just starting to drill that. And then the third rig has just started drilling on that deeper zone to test for the copper. So certainly, yes, to answer your question, the D will be getting our teeth into it soon, or as we speak. We're drilling that right now, and we'll see what happens there. Knock on wood, and then we'll go back to the B, and then we'll hopefully be able to be in a position to drill A at some stage here too.
All right. And you raised some money recently. How much of a runway does that give you that, and how much drilling in meters and holes do you expect to be able to work off of that recent financing?
We hope to drill at least what we drilled last year. Last year we drilled about 8,100 meters, call it 8,000 meters for simple numbers, and at least that much this year. We're hoping maybe we can flex upwards. It kind of depends on how things progress in the year, but we're fully committed to exploring. Right now we're going with 3 rigs. We'll continue doing that for the remainder of the year, and we certainly have the runway to do that from now to at least December, if not early next year. So I think we're in a pretty good position in that regard. There's been about 16,000 meters that we've drilled at Ballywire to date. 8,000 of that was last year, and so we hope to at least match that this year.
Yeah,
In
and
terms of
there's essentially 12 month a year drilling we're in your region, right?
Yeah, that's actually a good point too, because that's not the case in a lot of jurisdictions. So yeah, we can drill year round, which is great, and obviously we've done so for the last number of years here.
I got an email question here that's very well thought out, and I'll just read that out. Given the complex polymetallic nature of the Ballywire discovery, especially with zinc, lead, silver, and emerging elements like gallium and antimony, how are you approaching the metallurgical testing to ensure maximum economic recovery?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I guess, look, first things first is let's see what we have. We don't know where the boundaries of the discovery are. We don't know where all the hot spots are yet. So that's the first order of business. And in the meantime, yeah, I think we'll probably, once we get a good idea of what it is that we have, maybe, I don't know, 12 to 24 months from now, we'll start thinking about the metallurgy. The good part for me is that this is all sulfides. If we're dealing with oxides or some type of mineralization like that, that's been highly weathered, that's where you would run into a lot of recovery problems. But typically in Ireland, typically for the zinc and the lead, for sure, it's sphalerite, galena, and pyrite. Which is very much the same as all the others. Zinc deposits they're generally sphalerite, galena, pyrite bodies. And Ireland is well known for high recoveries and producing very clean concentrates. And so I'm not expecting any big surprises on that front. In this deeper copper, silver, or maybe antimony zone, perhaps that could be a perhaps different. That's a little bit of a brand new frontier for Ireland, albeit maybe reminiscent of, again, maybe a Gore drum or something like that, which again didn't have any metallurgical issues that in terms of recoveries anyway. Obviously polymetallic there too. But yeah, I think that's something that we'll definitely start working on probably in the next 12 to 24 months when we've figured out what we have, and then go from there. One other point I was going to make is that Germanium is most likely within the mineral structure of the sphalerite. That's from my understanding of how germanium occurs. Germanium really only occurs in two places in the Earth's crust, and that is in coal ash, and in zinc deposits. Certain zinc deposits. We don't have gallium, by the way. We only have germanium. Gallium doesn't really kick, or neither does indium. So it's just really germanium. But the germanium, typically, if it's there, it's within the sphalerite or intergrown within the sphalerite. So the sphalerite concentrate I'm guessing, but will most likely have all the germanium in it.
It sounds like the Irish deposits are pretty, or there's not that much variability in the type of metallurgy and mineralization in that. So at least to date, it's been pretty fairly consistent.
They're all the same, but they're all different. So,
Yeah.
they're all the same from a 40,000-foot view generally, in that
Yeah.
they're all sort of Mississippi Valley type. Some people say SEDEX-ish types of deposits. The hotter end member of Mississippi Valley type. They're really their own class, Irish type zinc deposits. Like if you have a or petrology textbook, Irish type will have its own chapter within it. But from that 40,000-foot view, yeah, I mean, in terms of how they occur, they typically occur at the base of the Walsortian limestone, except for Navan, which is up there. It's a different horizon called the Navan beds. But anyway, for all the other deposits, they occur in the base of the Walsortian limestone. They all are sphalerite and galena and pyrite deposits essentially. And so the metallurgy should be more or less the same. So we're not expecting anything. And again, the only alarm bells for me would be if it was oxidized, which it isn't. So, and I'm fairly comfortable on that front.
With the antimony, is that there have been a few other deposits with antimony in it, and does that indicate any other like sort of secondary or tertiary other matters in terms of maybe metallurgy or the structure or anything else that it could be indicative of beyond just better economics?
Well, that's what we're hoping, because these copper antimony numbers are in the base of the Walsortian limestone. Usually you see the copper well below the base of the Walsortian limestone. That could indicate that this is a very strong system as opposed to just like an average system. So again, biased thinking there perhaps, but certainly scientifically speaking, just with a cold eye, if you're getting copper already at that level higher up in the stratigraphy, that would suggest that maybe this is a stronger system. So that's what we're waiting to find out with the drill rig. But yeah, look, the antimony, there's tenantite tetrahedrite that are the minerals that we're seeing in this copper zone. That's what's hosting the copper as well as the chalcopyrite. Those are the two minerals that seem to be hosting the copper and the antimony. And again, and probably some of the silver as well in that. So again, people can look up. We have that in the news release as well, so people can do their research on that. And again, that's something that we'll probably be looking at in a lot more detail once we figure out the lay of the land and where we are, what we have.
What stage are Glencore at next door?
So this is their only greenfields project, or at least it was a year or two. I'm not sure. I haven't tracked it in the last. I haven't heard anything to the contrary. But as far as I know, this is Glencore's only greenfield project in the world. So that's quite significant. I think, Ireland is, like I said, well known for producing clean concentrates. Glencore certainly cares about concentrates. Clean concentrates are important, just as a general statement, because you can use them to clean up dirty concentrates from other parts of the world. That, like, especially VMS jurisdictions that tend to have a little, few more deleterious metals in the concentrates. So it's very handy. It's a very good thing to have, clean concentrates. As far as I know, again, we have a good working relationship with Glencore. But again, I only know as much as the man on the street or everyone and their dog on the street about what Glencore is doing. So I really don't have any insights in terms of what they're doing. But I do know, obviously, they've invested in us. They just added a new director to our board. We know from public disclosure every year that they do a bit of drilling every year. So their annual reserve and resource report, anyone can look that up and look at the amount of drilling that they did incrementally each year. So they continue to be active on the ground as far as we can tell. And we shall see. But yeah, I think all those three elements in terms of them being our biggest investor on the board, et cetera, and our next door neighbor is a good thing, is a good fact pattern.
Did Glencore and Gentile, did they participate in the last financing, let's say at pro rata rates, or what was their position?
Michael did pro rata, Glencore did not. Yeah,
Okay.
so that again, you would have seen that in the insider filings on SETI. Yeah, so Glencore's put in I think 5 financings over since and again, people can look at this. It's all public information on insider on the SETIs, but about 5 if I recall since 2019. So sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, and I think that's, generally it's probably a bit of a headache for big companies like that to participate on every financing. But I think they're at 16.1%, they're still pole position within Group 11.
Someone's asking about when a PEA will be prepared.
Well, initially we need to get to an MRE, so a mineral resource estimate initially, and like I said, we're still probably a year to 2 away from surmising that, because we still have a lot of work to do to figure out where the edges are, where the hotspots are. Once we have that pinned down, then I think it makes sense to go directly into, like the first question was about the metallurgy. Jump into the 3D modeling by an arm's length engineer, and let's put a mineral resource on it. And once we get to at least inferred, then we can put a PEA on that. And obviously, I'd be very keen to get those get to that point as soon as possible. But we still want to do the exciting exploration bits first, obviously. So it wouldn't be a smart thing to do at this stage. So we need to figure out what we have, and then at that stage, let's put a resource together. And then at that point, then it makes sense to do a PEA. And usually, I would imagine a PEA would take 6 to 12 months ish, maybe less, once you have an initial MRE.
On a resource estimate, I don't know the zinc lead deposit types and sizes that well. What would be sort of a meaningful resource size? Maybe a small, medium, and large. What are the sort of orders of magnitude on what would be meaningful in those?
That's an excellent question, actually, because I forgot to mention the infrastructure we have in Ireland, which is so key for base metal projects. It's a killer if you're a base metal projects and you do not have good infrastructure. Because if you're really, really remote and you're not by a river or you're not by, a highway or something, you need serious tonnage. Like you need 100 million tons plus. You need super high grades. You need a lot to get that thing off the ground. And even once you build it, the OpEx is going to be quite cumbersome. Because with base metal projects, remember, you're trucking out. With a gold project, silver project, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, because you can fly out your bricks of metal, right? And every couple of weeks or whatever, that's fine. But the minute you start producing copper, zinc, etc., then you're talking about daily truckloads of concentrate. And so that's a whole different beast. That means you need roads. You can't fly that out. And so that's why infrastructure is so key for base metal projects. So in Ireland, the rule of thumb is, to answer your question, roughly 10 million, 10 and 10. So 10 million tons at 10% is roughly what you need to get off the ground, economically speaking. But again, that's very much a rule of thumb, very much needs to be, crystallized with current up-to-date information on pricing, input costs, et cetera, et cetera. But just to give the audience a flavor of the type of thing that we're hoping for here. Obviously, actually, apropos this slide, you can see the footprint of Lachine. That was a 20 million ton deposit, very profitable mine, just 50 kilometers up the road from us, up the Rathdowney Trend. So again, that's the footprint at the same scale as the underlying map. And so the 6x2 kilometer box hopefully has that same kind of potential. Certainly from looking at the 2 footprints of the box versus the outline of Lachine, that's what we're hoping. That's really what we're gunning for.
Yeah. The bigger mines in Ireland, what is their tonnage?
So Tara was the biggest. That's an absolute monster. And again, that was like 130 million tons, 10 to 12% zinc grades. That's a huge anomaly though. I'm just gonna, while we chat, go to the initial Irish map. But that's a one in a million type of deposit. I mean, that's been mined for 50 years now, still going. They just made a new discovery called Tara Deeps, but I think they made that in 2012, 2015 timeframe. It's it's quite deep. It's called Tara Deep for good for good reason. But Lachine, Galmoy, so Lachine was about 20 million tons. Galmoy was about 10 million tons. Very rich though, sort of 14, 15% grades.
Yeah.
Silver Mines was roughly 20 million tons as well. I'm getting there eventually here. Here we go. So Tara was the one that's the behemoth. Again, Pallas Green is actually quite large as well, 45 million tons of mineralization at 8.4% zinc and lead. So that gives you, that's the biggest repository of metal in Ireland outside of Tara. So we have a big critical mass already, you know, within trucking distance away from us, 20 kilometers away. But we
Yeah.
have something here that's shallow. Pallas Green tends to be on the deeper side. So I think around 300 meters deep down to, from public disclosure, I think it's 1100 meters deep. A lot
Yeah.
of it is kind of on the deeper end of things. And so it would be, wouldn't it be nice to have something shallow, high grade in the neighborhood within trucking distance that would kind of help pay back initial capex, et cetera, et cetera. Again, I mentioned Galmoy, that was about a 10 million ton deposit. Lachine was about a 20 million ton deposit. Silver Mines was about I think 18, 19 million tons, roughly 9, 10% as zinc grades as well. Tina, I think that was a 10 million ton deposit roughly as well. So that's kind of what we're gunning for. North of 10 million tons, 20 million tons will be absolutely fantastic for us. And
Yeah.
obviously, you know, if you're already situated right beside a 45 million ton deposit, the whole complex starts to really rev up.
The EU and Ireland have recently spoken about increased interest in securing strategic metals. How does this discovery play a potential part for all of Ireland?
Yeah, it's the CRMA was passed last year. That's the Critical Raw Materials Act. I think that was on the back of Ukraine in 22, where Europe really woke up and said, geez, we really need to diversify away from Russian gas, number one, but Chinese supply. And so there's been a resurgence and a real awakening and awareness in Europe of the importance of mining and security of supply, especially of critical minerals. So that is certainly happening. In parallel to that, Ireland's government has basically said we're going to invest 30 million euros to fast track Irish mining. And so that is happening and underway. They announced that last year. That's being spearheaded through Lionhead, which is a mining specialist fund out of South Africa. And so, as far as I understand, you know, a lot of tire kicking going on right now to figure out who's going to avail of that, who's going to get an investment. It's basically just a pure investment. It's not a grant or anything else, nothing fancy. They're just investors alongside all the other investors. So that's called the IMF, very cleverly named, the Irish Mining Fund. And it's basically a spin out from the ISIF, which is the Irish Strategic Investment Fund. And that's basically quite a big fund, but 30 million euros of that was basically spun out into the IMF, and the IMF will now be a partner with shareholders and invite other, as far as I understand, invite other shareholders to join them in investing in Irish projects. So I think it's a really smart way to go about it, and I really applaud the Irish government for having done that. And it certainly helps, you know, us tell the story and showcase the fact that that Ireland is open for business in this regard.
Do you know how the calcite relates to the polymetallics and limestone?
Yeah, so basically the mineralizing fluids were it's a two fluid mixing model, which basically met at the base of the Walsrosian limestone at the fault. So the fault was bringing up metal rich fluids, saline solutions were sort of percolating down, and the two fluids met, and they basically permeated out along the base of the Walsrosian limestone. Now that event would have dissolved a lot of the limestone, a lot of the Walsrosian limestone, and so in the process of mineralization, that limestone that was dissolved, essentially calcite, was brought up further up it precipitated out the zinc and the lead, and then further upwards it went and basically cooled and then precipitated out the calcite. That's kind of how we understand it, and it seems to be borne out in what we're seeing in the drill core. So the high grade zinc is basically as you saw in some of the slides I showed earlier, and then you have these bodies of calcite sitting above it, and the fact that we're hitting calcite, 1 kilometer away from historic drilling, all of a sudden, we had a eureka moment a few months back saying, wow, I wonder if that's something to do with a mineralizing event as well. Obviously, calcite itself is not incredibly hard to find, but just to have it in large quantities is quite telling. So this is the thing, that the 1.3 kilometers away, you're seeing large amounts of, pure white calcite. and that could be very much associated with mineralization. So that's kind of the genetic. Maybe I'm over describing it, but that's kind of how it works.
You indicated that you're to maybe do what 8,000 or so meters this year of drilling. How much have you done so far?
Oh, that's a great question. Sorry, I haven't calculated that, but it's probably between north of maybe 1,500 meters. I hazard a guess, but
Okay.
apologies, I don't have that number front of mind.
And do you have any further land acquisitions on the table?
The reverse. So we were at one stage the largest license holder in Ireland around 2016, 2017 time. And that's not something you want in the long term. So our modus operandi was get all the good ground we could, do a really quick first pass on it, and then basically start focusing in on the areas that are lighting up. And so, especially after we made the Ballywire discovery, we've been basically reducing our land position so that we drop our overhead costs. Because every year in Ireland, every 2 years, you need to spend an X amount of euros, and every time you pass that 2 year cycle into the next 2 year window, that ratchets up every 2 years. And so it's a clever system to basically get you to work or relinquish the ground. And so once you know you're onto something and you really want to work in this area, you kind of have to, you're smart to let go of as much non-core ground as possible. We've been certainly doing that, and you can see a lot more detail on that in our financials. So I invite anyone that's keen on looking at that, looking at our financials. So we've dropped our land position significantly since those days in 2017, like really, really significant, like over 70% of that ground position. So, and that's a good thing because then our overheads are lower, and we had a huge amount of land package, right? So we've really narrowed it down to just the core areas, and those are still really big areas for in terms of where the discovery. So we have more than enough room all around the Ballywire area, for example, Stonepark, et cetera, all the key areas that we really want to keep exploring, that we think have a really bright future.
Oh, and you've got your hands full here with Ballywire, so that's
Yeah.
lots to keep you going. With that, we need to start wrapping things up here, Bart. Thank you for the excellent presentation and the answers to the great questions. Any final thoughts? Any thing to sort of wrap it up here and put a bow on the presentation and Group 11?
Well, it's just amazing what a commodity can do. So based on yesterday's results, obviously, copper, it is the metal of the future. We've all known that for years, and the majors are certainly gearing all in that direction. Even looking at Barrick or somebody like that, it's a gold story very much. But more and more people are turning to copper, and obviously there's a realization a lot more copper deposits are going to be found. And I think it's great for us to have that. Obviously, we're a zinc exploration company first and foremost. Will remain that way. But if we can all of a sudden have a paradigm shift in terms of finding copper underneath the zinc, clearly that's super exciting for us, especially if it comes with super high silver. So that's certainly what we're seeing. And so yeah, having the right commodity at the right time certainly helps an already good exploration story. So long may that continue. Yeah, so looking forward to obviously having an exciting year of drilling and providing a lot more results for everybody. So stay tuned.
Excellent. Bart, thank you very much. That was a lot of fun, very informative. Have a great day, and I'm looking forward to our next conversation. Cheers.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Martin. All the best, everyone.